Peggy 18.
Paris. Nazi country.
That's where Papa is, so that's where we're going.
When I started playing the game, it felt almost too easy. Like, okay, you can basically just one-shot everything, but then once the first elite soldier appeared, we're like, okay, this is actually you actually have to work together. You have to use your combat abilities and stuff. So how did you approach that sort of, okay, how can we, take our full frontal assault sort of gameplay and make it more tactical?
It's been a very iterative process. I think when we started out, it almost played like two single-player gamers. So the goal has been to make this a great co-op experience. And as I say, one way we've done that is to make sure that the enemies become focal points, like the common problems that you both need to group up and figure out how to take down. And the elites is like a first small test of that, and then they have the super soldiers that are quite powerful and they have a lot of health. And you need to work together to take down the super soldiers. So yeah, we try to have a mix between like the enemies that are still really easy to take down, and like the soldiers and the dogs and the drones, but then you have these bigger enemies that you're going to have to cooperate to take down. And most fights will have one or two at least of these bigger ones. Yeah.
I may have an assignment suitable for two Nazi killers such as yourselves.
How is this going to work with an AI as a partner? How good this is emulated second player?
So I've said earlier, and it's probably not a good thing to say, but I've said that I'm surprised how great she works actually as an AI partner. So I've been playing a lot back in the office, and I've been playing alone with the AI partner. And I think so. We strive for an AI that should first not annoy the player, right? You want it to be a smooth experience, but you also want to feel like she actually contributes to the fights, but she doesn't steal your kills or dominate or anything. So she kind of follows your lead in how well you are doing. But then we also try to make you feel like a real character. So she will sometimes need a bit of help. She will help you when you need it, and you have this back and forth banter between the two sisters, triggering dynamically in cool situations.
Stewardesses.
You got this PEP signal system within the game. How does it work when you're playing with an AI comrade at your side?
Exactly the same. So she might need help sometimes, and you give her a boost. And that's the thing, you also give yourself a boost when you do it. You boost both of you.
Yeah.
So you might just use it to help yourself, but you also help your AI sister.
She needs help sometimes, that means she cheats in comparison to a real player, that she does not lose that much health and that she is not that vulnerable as a normal player, is it?
She is designed in a way to make sure that she mustn't be annoying, and if she would just go around dying randomly like the stupid player might, okay, that would be frustrating. So if you guys get overwhelmed, it's when you're playing with an AI partner, that's probably because you messed up, because she follows your lead. So
she sticks close to you.
Yes.
Okay, she's not wandering around doing her own business. And how do you trigger her when you have to open up a crate for additional life? Does she just join you when you pull the lever?
She just shows up and does her part.
Alles in Ordnung, Jess? Absolut bestens.
and does the game scale some bit? If you alone, there are less enemies or weaker enemies or something like that?
We never have less enemies because we have this idea of a certain pacing and a certain intensity that we want in our fights. So in all our Wolfenstein games, we will always just, if you want a lower or a higher difficulty setting, we just crank and change the numbers.
Okay.
Right? We always want the same amount of enemies. We want the fight that we designed, basically, even though it might be easier or more difficult. You should have the same feeling of intensity, right? What was the question?
If you play with an AI instead of a second player, is the game scaling down a little bit because you are alone as a player and the AI never can
well,
play?
The goal is that it should feel like you're playing with another player, but it's very much depending on how well you do. So if you do well, she will be able to pull through usually as well. And if you, as I said before, if you mess up and you create a situation where you're both overwhelmed, she might get downed, for example. But that is really your fault.
Okay, schicken wir den Mann eine Botschaft. Treten wir diesen General in den Arsch.
Since you're free to choose which mission you take, how do you plan to, or how do you present us the overarch story then?
Yeah. So there's like you can say that the game, the main missions of the game have like a beginning and an end. And in the middle there are also, there's a lot of side missions, but there are also a few main missions. But you can do.
But it's not only you kill this commander and then pick up some items you didn't see on your first try, like in New Colossus.
No, these are proper side missions. We're talking about the Ibra commanders?
Yeah.
No, these are proper side missions.
Okay.
The game is designed
with a story in itself, so to say. Little missions with little stories.
I mean, they might tell a part of, a little part of the main story, like on the kind of a side of the
and
main
it's always
story.
like,
or they tell other stories about the resistance against the Nazis in Paris, because you become part of the resistance and you fight for Paris freedom, basically.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stories are around that.
And it's always, or most of the time, something like, do something for me, then I give you a hint for where your father might be.
No, pretty early on when you get to the catacombs, you will know roughly the work ahead of you to find out where your father is, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of the father, although I really like playing two women in the 1980s, I'm a huge fan of BJ, of course, and I was asking myself, where will we find? You will not give us an answer to that, but where will we find? Where will we find Wolfenstein 3 then? Is it before that, or? But I have to ask: is it before the Youngblood spin-off? Yes, or is it after?
So I mean, we've spoken before, like from the very beginning. We looked at our Wolfenstein as a trilogy, and this is a kind of spin-off, its own story, and this takes place after the trilogy. Yeah.
Okay.
So Youngblood is after the trilogy.
So he will survive. It's a big letdown.
Now you already know that he will survive Wolfenstein 3.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing I really liked about the previous Wolfensteins is that
we haven't made that game, so we don't know.
Maybe it's time travel a little bit.
Maybe there's a new alien.
Android.
Sorry.
He already survived.
Yes,
Okay.
you survived being decapitated, so you know.
Yeah.
How can you top that? But that's not the question. My question is that I really like previous games, in terms of like level design and resource management. Basically, based on the difficulty setting, the game like equips you with everything you need to deal with the situation. And now you in Youngblood you emphasize a lot more the leveling mechanics and perks and weapon upgrades. So of course my worry is that okay, at some point I'm just not equipped to deal with the situations when I have to go back and grind or something. So how are you balancing it, or what made you feel that this sort of leveling mechanic is actually necessary for the game?
Well, one reason is that we want this looser structure where you have much more freedom, which missions to play, in which order you want to play them, how you want to tackle one of these, what I call slices of city, these levels that are a part of Paris. If you want that amount of freedom, that sort of level system where the enemies also kind of level with you as you continue playing the game, allows you that sort of freedom and the ability to return and keep playing more side missions in these different parts of the city. Yeah, I think that's an answer.
But is there like a fixed level scale for certain levels, or do they keep, or are they scaled to the sisters?
So normally they kind of scale with you. There's a range there, and there's some randomness, so you don't always face the same sort of opposition when you return to place. And also as you keep leveling up, you will also see different enemies in the city, because you're not going to face a lot of super tough robots in the beginning of the game, but more of those will show up during the game, kind of in the same areas. And then there was a second really clever thing that I wanted to say. Right, so it's not so clever, it's not really disappointing. So yeah, the world kind of levels with you, but there are certain areas that we say, okay, we want this to be actually really, really difficult. Yeah, you might be able to pull it off early on in the game if you're really good, and that's fine and that's cool. Otherwise, you'll return there later. It's not us asking the player to grind. It's us saying, okay, this is kind of what we call a soft blocker. It's really, really tough. It's probably something that you are meant to do later, but if you can, yeah, that's really cool. Well done. So it's not about a grind. It's about playing hopefully interesting missions.
Okay.
And discovering more of the city.
Would you say that Youngblood is more the game, and when I say Wolfenstein, the first one, and the New Colossus is more a story game, kind of, and could you say that Youngblood is more a game that's more...
I understand, yeah.
Yeah?
In a way, the story is still important to us in this game. The emphasis isn't on cutscenes the same way. And we give more room for the player to tell their own stories in the city. And we have allowed ourselves to do more maybe gamey stuff, like you have a double jump, and we do that because it's just a lot of fun. We have health bars above enemies because we think that's a great thing to have when you fight tougher enemies with more. They're more powerful than in previous games when you fight them together to keep a track of their state, basically. So we have allowed ourselves to do more stuff like that and just have fun with it.
And will we find part of that in the... Okay, you don't work on the game at the moment, as you said, but when there are mechanics that are great or they
prove themselves.
Yeah, prove themselves. Thank you. Will we find them in the third Wolfenstein then? Like health bars over enemies and stuff?
Whatever we do next, the decisions we make about the design for whatever the next product will be is going to be driven by the vision for that game. So the vision for this game was really quite different from Wolf 1 and 2. The same thing is true for, like when we did Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, that also had another vision, a different vision from like the main games, and that allowed us to do things that we might otherwise not do, like zombies. So, but we didn't have zombies in Wolf 2 because it's a different vision.
Der Maschinensoldat muss sterben.
Was there an initial trigger to make a co-op game? So, was there a specific reason why you want to make a co-op game?
A big reason is because we think it's fun.
Yeah.
So this is actually the fourth Wolfenstein game we make, and to make sure it keeps being interesting for us and to give us new challenges, that sounds fun, and we have a lot of co-op fans at work as well. A lot of people want to play our games in co-op in the office, basically. So yeah, the only sad thing is that we haven't been able to do like split screen, because there's a lot of people who still allow that.
Can people join a co-op game every time, or do you have to start a mission with a partner? Is it a seamless co-op that you can join while another person is playing?
Yeah, you can join in the middle of
every
something.
time. Okay.
Yeah.
Komm und hilf mir, wenn du nicht allein kämpfen willst!
Did you already had the idea of a co-op game in the future when you decided to give Anya and DJ twins?
Oh no, that was just perfect. Yeah. So I think in our creative director's mind, Jens Mattis, the fate of that character and that family has been set from like when he started working on the New Order. So he has his story he wants to tell, and yeah, they were twins, and that's just perfect for our game.
Could you explain Kenneth and Arthur, please? Okay, Kenneth and Arthur, please could you explain why she is, why Soft is called Kenneth and Jess is called Arthur?
I think this.
It is in the first cutscene.
Yeah, it's just from a book they read.
Okay.
This will be explained in their banter and their dialogue throughout the game. They refer to this English book a lot.
Okay, check Kenneth and Arthur.
I think it's a made-up book.
Why can't you just enjoy life for a second, Jess?